হয়ে গেছে? হ্যালো।
হ্যাঁ বলো।
স্যার একটু কথা বলুন তো দেখি, সাউন্ডটা চেক করে আপনি একটু কথা বলে দিন।
হ্যাঁ, হ্যালো। শোনা যাচ্ছে? এখন
ঠিক আছে স্যার, ঠিক আছে স্যার, ঠিক আছে।
ঠিক আছে। আচ্ছা, ভালো শোনা যাচ্ছে তো?
রোহিত স্যার, রোহিত স্যার।
হ্যাঁ বলো।
হ্যালো।
শোনা যাচ্ছে? বলো।
রোহিত,
হ্যাঁ বলো বলো বলো।
বলছি যা মেঘ করে বেরিয়ে খুব টেনশন লাগছে জানেন তো?
বৃষ্টি হবে নাকি?
আকাশের অবস্থা ভালো নয়। সে অবস্থা অনেক, এগুলো একটা
তোমার
চাপ।
তো ইয়ে আছে। হুম হুম হুম। তুমি বাবুসোনা অফিস থেকে করছো তো? বাবুসোনা কোথায়? শুনতে পাচ্ছ আমার কথা?
হ্যাঁ,
বাবু শোনার কথা?
ঠিক আছে, অসুবিধা হবে না।
ঠিক আছে। তুমি তোমাদের ছবিগুলোকে করো, ওটা তো অসুবিধা হবে। হ্যাঁ স্যার, জয়েন হন। কোনটা স্যার? আপনাকে যেটা এখন যেটা পাঠালাম ওইটাতে তো? না, আমি আপনাকে যেটা লিঙ্ক
হ্যাঁ,
পাঠিয়েছি
বলুন।
একটু আগে। স্যার, হিতেশ স্যার, হিতেশ স্যার, স্যার শুনতে পাচ্ছেন?
হ্যাঁ, বলো।
ও, এই বিশ্বজিৎ স্যারকে পাঠিয়েছেন নাকি?
বলো।
বলছি বিশ্বজিৎ স্যারকে পাঠিয়েছেন?
হ্যাঁ, শুনতে পাচ্ছ? আমি শুনতে পাচ্ছি তোমার
হ্যাঁ।
কথা।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, বলছি বিশ্বজিৎ স্যারকে পাঠিয়েছেন?
হ্যাঁ, বিশ্বজিৎ স্যারকে পাঠিয়ে দিয়েছি। হ্যাঁ, পাঠিয়ে
আচ্ছা
দিচ্ছি।
আচ্ছা, আমি প্রিন্সিপাল স্যারকে কল করলাম।
হ্যাঁ,
উনি
পাঠিয়েছি। হ্যাঁ,
আচ্ছা, প্রিন্সিপাল
হ্যাঁ,
স্যারকে বলে দিই।
হ্যাঁ, জয়েন করতে বলো।
বললাম তো।
If you can hear me, Anuradha ma'am, you're welcome to this webinar. Yeah, good morning at your end, and good afternoon from our end. I am waiting for Gabriela ma'am to join in. I have sent her the link. I'm just waiting for her to join in.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Okay, that's great. You know what happens? Our network here might break up sometimes, and you might hear some patchy voices and some static videos. So don't get don't get upset by that. It happens. It keeps on happening. Okay, so there is Gabriela ji has also arrived. Welcome, Gabriela ji, to the webinar. We Shovik, since our principal sir is already here, if you give us the green signal, we will begin the session. We'll begin this webinar. Shovik, Shovik, if you are here, let me know, and we will begin the session. Shovik, unmute yourself.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you are okay, I think we have everyone right now, though two of the speakers are still supposed to join. Okay, I can see Dr. Khalendranath Chattopadhyay, and should we wait for Dibyendu sir? Shovik? Okay, I can see Dibyendu Bhattacharya as well. So, Shobik, I think we have all our guests and
Yes, sir.
people who are going to speak today. If you say, we can get on with the Okay, all right. So just give me a minute. Okay, so since most of the people are here, at least people who matter are here, I can see some of them, and though the screen is kind of populated with a number of the people. Okay, so I welcome you to this one-day international webinar on mental health and social well-being in the pandemic situation, organized by the Education Department along with the IQSC cell of Acharya Sukumar Sen Mohabidyalaya. As it is a challenge to fight and defeat the virus, it is also a challenge to maintain mental health and social well-being in this difficult situation. Today, we are going to listen to our learned speakers who will offer various ways in which we can accept and overcome this challenge. I would like to thank our chief patron, Sage.
Pritesh, you're muted.
It is sir. It is sir. It is sir. Please unmute.
Uh, Principal sir, can you hear me? Was I muted for this whole time? Yeah.
Yes.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I have unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
When you're not muted, we can hear you.
I have unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Well, maybe we can proceed with the first presentation if there is no plan B, since the organizers' internet seems to not be working.
Principal sir, yes sir, can you hear? Principal sir, Principal sir, can you hear? Principal sir,
If everyone is online and everyone can hear each other, then maybe we can start with the program. Is there another organizer that is online to announce
sir.
the speakers?
Hello, Principal sir. Principal sir, শুনতে পাচ্ছেন স্যার? Yes, আপনারটা আনমিউট করুন প্রিন্সিপাল স্যার। স্যার, please sir, can you hear? Principal sir.
Hello. Hello.
Yes sir, yes please welcome. Please sir,
Okay. Okay.
শোনা যাচ্ছে স্যার।
Thank you. I, on behalf of Acharya Sukumar Sen Mahavidyalaya, welcome you all in this international webinar on mental health and social well-being in pandemic situation, organized by the Department of Education in collaboration with IQAC of our college. I welcome you all. First of all, let us clear why this webinar has been organized by our college. Today we are in very grave situation for the COVID-19 pandemic arena. Particularly our country is facing a tremendous problem. Only yesterday we have heard that we have made a world record that 96,000 people have been affected in 24 hours. We are in stress. Practically, we are in distress. So here lies the significance of this international webinar. Let us see how we can overcome this pandemic, and particularly we are in stress, our mental health is becoming deteriorating day by day. In this condition, we are thinking, let I may not be the next person, my family may not be the next person, my relatives may not be the next person. In this context, here lies the significance of this kind of international webinar, how we shall overcome this pandemic. Next, I again welcome you all. First of all, let me welcome one by one Professor Khagendranath Chattopadhyay, Head of the Department of Education, University of Burdwan. Welcome, sir. Next, our international speaker, Professor Gabriela Nick Ilieva. She is the clinical professor, Department of Middle East and Islamic Studies, New York University. Ma'am, we heartily welcome you. Madam Anuradha Puri, she is the start of Hindi teacher of New York University. It's our proud privilege to welcome you, ma'am. And last but not the least of this one-day international webinar, our speaker, Professor Dibyendu Bhattacharya. He is the head of the Department of Education, Kolani University. Welcome, sir. Now, let me welcome all the viewers, all the listeners of this international webinar. Let us hear the speeches of some national and international speakers in this international webinar. I again, on behalf of this organizing committee of Acharya Sukumar Sen Mahavidyalaya, I again welcome you all. Let's hope for the best. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. I am back, and I apologize whatever network and issues. I will not turn on my video, apprehending that request Professor Dr. Chattopadhyay, Head of the Department of Education, University of Burdwan, to illuminate us his objects. Am I audible now?
Yes, audible.
Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Pritesh Chakraborty, for inviting me in this international webinar. I'm thankful to Professor Jayanta Mukherjee, Principal of Acharya Sukumar Sen Mahavidyalaya, Professor Shobhit Naik, Assistant Professor of Department of Education, Acharya Sukumar Sen Mahavidyalaya, Dr. Dibyendu Bhattacharya, Professor and also Head Department of Education, Kolani University, Dr. Gabriela Nick Leva of New York, and Anuradha Puri of New York. So today we'll discuss about the most societal problem throughout the world due to COVID-19, which is the problem of mental health. In January 2020, World Health Organization declared the outbreak of a new coronavirus disease, which is called COVID-19, to be a public health emergency of international concern. World Health Organization stated that there is a high risk of COVID-19 spreading to other countries around the world. And what we see in March 2020, World Health Organization made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic. We know this history, and from March 23, our country, not our country, almost all countries in this world are struggling to combat COVID-19. And the only way to combat this disease is social distancing. And it is maintaining throughout the world, because we have no medicine, no vaccine for disease till today. So the only way is social distancing, and almost all schools and colleges and universities are being closed from March 2020, and now from September this month, in some countries, some schools and colleges are opening. But in our country, all schools and colleges and universities and all other institutions are closed. Here, in this international webinar, our topic for discussion is the mental health and social well-being in this pandemic situation, COVID-19 situation. So we'll not focus on the teaching learning system in COVID-19 situation in schools and colleges and universities throughout the world, especially in our country, but we'll focus on the mental health and social well-being in this situation. COVID-19 social isolation measures have a profound impact on the psychological and mental well-being of individuals across society. Many of the anticipated consequences of isolation measures are themselves key risk factors for mental health issues, including suicide, self-harm, substance misuse, and domestic and child abuse. Societal interaction has been widely interlinked with psychological well-being, social opportunities, and employment. Thereby, restriction of these measures are suggested to be profoundly distressing to those experiencing strict isolation. COVID-19 inducing widespread fear, loneliness, and psychological sequelae. It has been reported that domestic abuse offenses have been made in many countries, including India, highlighting the potentially fatal impact of social isolation policies. The rise in domestic abuse cases are alarming and bring to light concerns surrounding the collateral psychological and mental health impacts of social isolation during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, in COVID-19 pandemic, this problem of mental health is a global problem. COVID-19 is a global disease, And the problem of mental health is a global problem, not in our country only, but throughout the world. The implementation of a nationwide lockdown disrupts the day-to-day lives of the general public. The pandemic has caused an unprecedented shrinkage of world economy and the closure of business across the world. Due to the high demand for emergency funding, many self-employed individuals are restoring to short-term bank loans to maintain lines of income. Those in low-paid, self-employed occupations experience the greatest impact due to loss of work or the temporary closure of their business. There have been reports of heightened feelings of anxiety and depression, with some fearful of post-lockdown anxiety and paranoia. The largest stressor being an overarching feeling of loss. That means loss of income, loss of daily routine, and loss of social interaction. Other at-risk groups include children and obviously students who have experienced closures of schools and universities, causing significant disruption to daily routines, with factors such as exam postponement, accommodation expulsion, and graduation cancellations contributing. Furthermore, there has been a significant detrimental impact to those suffering from ongoing mental health conditions due to decreased access to support and resources. The COVID-19 pandemic has been as seen the incidence of domestic abuse dramatically increased globally because of reduced instability within the household. You can see that there's an increase of 32 to 36% in domestic abuse incident in France, and about 35% increase across USA, almost 25% increase in UK, and 75% increase in Google searches relating to domestic abuse support. The social distancing and sheltering in place measures are essential to minimizing the spread of COVID-19. However, they are likely to dramatically increase the risk of domestic and inter-family violence. So, this problem is a global problem, but what are the measures, or what will be our behavioral changes so that this great impact of COVID-19 can be stopped partially, not fully. So for this, World Health Organization have suggested us some measures. Number one, they are telling that doing physical activity regularly is a very good practice for COVID-19. COVID-19 pandemic means that many of us are trying to stay at home and sitting down more than we usually do. And we have forgotten to do some physical exercises. But if you do some physical exercises regularly, then the risk of COVID-19 will be less. Remember that just taking a short break from sitting by doing 3 to 4 minutes of light intensity physical movement such as walking or stretching will help ease our muscles and improve blood circulations and muscles activity, and which will finally help to prevent attack of COVID-19. Regular physical activity benefits both the body and mind. It can reduce high blood pressure, help manage weight and reduce the risk of heart disease, and ultimately it will help from attacking of COVID-19. So regular physical activity is a solution, but how can we improve our mental health? Because starting from the children to adult means more aged person, we are suffering from problems of mental health. So according to World Health Organization, some measures can be taken to stay in good mood and good mental health in this pandemic situation. So what are these? They advise that keep informed. What is this? They advise that listen to advice and recommendations from national and local authorities. Follow trusted news channels and radio and keep updated with the latest news from World Health Organization and social media. Have a routine. Keep up with daily routines as far as possible or make new ones. What is the probable routine? Get up and go to bed at similar times every day. Keep up with personal hygiene. Eat healthy meals at regular times. Exercise regularly. Allocate time for working and time for resting. Make time for doing things you enjoy. Next one, minimize news feeds. Okay, actually it is our common practice to open TV and see many channels, and almost in all channels we can see the news of COVID-19. our principal sir has already rightly stated that yesterday we have made another another actually we have secured another gold medal because we are now at first position in the world. So we can't get gold medal in football or volleyball or hockey or cricket, but we can secure gold medal in COVID-19 disease. So, but all news are not true. And if you see the news of COVID-19 in our TV channels always, then we will feel anxious or distress. So, World Health Organization has suggested that just seek the latest information at specific times of the day, once or twice a day, but not more. Second one, social contact is important, not physical contact. Not physical contact, but social contact, because our movement is restricted. So keep in regular contact with people close to you by telephone, mobile, and online channels. Their suggestion is that don't use alcohol or drug, and if you are addicted, then just limit it. Limit the amount of alcohol and drugs, because alcohol drinking and use of drug will increase the probability of getting COVID-19. And also, use of alcohol and drug, you know that it will increase your fear, anxiety, boredom, and social isolation. And actually, we know that in sanitizer we use alcohol, 70% alcohol. So we have a wrong information, rather wrong perception that alcohol can reduce the chance of COVID-19 if we drink it, but there is no evidence of any such effect that alcohol will reduce your COVID-19 attack. So now, screen time. Be aware of how much time you spend in front of a screen every day. Make sure that you take regular breaks from on-screen activities. Social media. They suggest that use your social media accounts to promote positive and hopeful stories, not negative stories. Positive stories. Correct misinformation wherever you see it. Help others. If you are able to offer your help, then just help others who are in more or worst position than you, and this help will be joyful to you, because helping others with food or clothes will be a kind of joyness in you. support health workers, because the health workers who are working for us with uh, many danger situation, and they are doing their level best for just our well-being. So we always support the health workers to do their duties in this situation, and we are thankful to these workers, uh, because if they don't do their works properly, then the situation will be more dangerous. And so uh, there are many incidents in our country that health workers are beaten or they are isolated socially, but it is not good. Now, for the parent, World Health Organization suggests what parent will do. Parent can maintain familiar routines as much as possible, or create a new one, especially if uh, if he stays at home. Discuss the new coronavirus with your children in an honest way, using age appropriate language. Okay. Parents should support their children with at home learning and make sure time is set aside for play. Okay. You know that children are going their schools not only for study or for learning something, but another attractive thing is that they can play in the playground, because in our society actually we have no playground today. In nowadays there is no playground, so that can't play, or rather we do not allow our children to play in the ground with other children, so they can get many freedom in school, and they can play in school playground. So it is another attraction of the children to go to their school. And the other thing, which is socialization. We know that school is a miniature society. So socialization process increases when children go to their school. But in COVID-19 situation, the children are not allowed to go to playground, and they are not able to play with their friends. So I think the most sufferers in COVID-19 situation are the children and also the over-aged person. Both are the most sufferer person. So help children find positive ways to express feelings such as fear and sadness. Sometimes engaging in a creative activity such as playing or drawing can help us with this process. We should help children in contact to stay in contact with their friends and family members through telephone and online channels. And we make sure that our children have time away from screens every day and spend time doing offline activities together. In short, we must spend some quality time with our children so that their mental health will be in a good position. Okay. If we sing some songs with our children or dance or play in a garden, then it will be helpful for them. And actually, you see that in this situation, children are spending more time in video games, but it will be harmful for them. Okay, so try to maintain the usual time what they were used before pandemic situation uh, in video games. Okay, for the adult, what are their suggestion? Their suggestion is that they should keep in regular contact with loved ones, with telephone or email or social media or video conference, etc. Keep regular routines and schedules as much as possible for eating, sleeping, and activities you enjoy. Adults should learn simple daily physical exercises at home, and they should find out how to get practical help if needed, like calling a taxi, having food delivered, or asking for medical care. Okay, so these are the suggestion for older people, and for persons who have a mental health condition. Already they have a mental problem. For those persons, if the persons are being treated for a mental health condition, make sure that they continue to take medication as prescribed, and that they have a way of restocking their medication. And if they are see a mental health specialist, find out how to continue with that support during the outbreak. Their whole suggestion is that keep in touch with people who care for these persons and know them, because anytime they can need they need a help from those people. So these are the suggestions of World Health Organization to keep our mental health good for parent, for children, for older people, and for school students. So I think there are many other speakers in this international webinar. They will describe other aspects of this COVID-19 pandemic situation. So I am just finishing my lecture by giving a thanks to the organizers, to principal of this college and other dignitaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have one question, sir.
Okay, okay.
Sir, will the effect of the social distance created between us due to COVID-19 be permanent?
No, no, no. I think it will be not permanent. When this situation will be normal, then actually we are social person. We have a social entity. So I think it will not be permanent. Due to fear, actually, you are maintaining our physical distance or social distance. But I think very good practice is that to wear mask. If we wear mask in normal situation also, then I think it will be very good to us, because we know there are so much population in our country, pollution in our country, as we have so population, and there are many pollution, air pollution, dust pollution, or other pollutions. So if we wear mask in normal situation also, then it will be good for our physical health. And for mental health, social distancing is not good. So I think social distancing will not be permanent.
Thank you very much, sir. We will benefit from your speech.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, I request Professor Gebbila Nikiliva ma'am and Professor Anuradha Puri ma'am to present their perspective. Ma'am, please welcome.
Welcome, everyone. Can you please confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
I am going to try to share my screen. I would like to give you a peek into the way I was thinking about this presentation, as surprised as I was to be invited to this very interesting discussion of things that are relevant to our lives right now. I am going to share my screen right now, and hopefully you will be able to see it. What I would like to do is I would like to start with questions. We don't ask enough questions, it seems, in the Western world, but asking questions is something extremely important and extremely constructive, especially in India, and especially in ancient India. And I'm a person who is very interested in examining discourse in ancient India, in examining how language encodes certain messages and certain ideas. And of course, when we are talking about COVID-19 and the effect on the mental stability of those who are going through this crisis, we want to know what is it that we do, what is it that we can do, what is it that other people have done in order to keep some kind of balance, in order to keep some kind of positivity that is more of a mental state rather than a moment. So what I thought I would do is I want to discuss a few of the terms which I find essential to the concept of mindfulness. I would like to trace their etymology if possible and meaning. I would like to make distinctions between synonyms with similar meanings and provide examples from Sanskrit texts. And then my colleague and friend Anuradha Puri, she will also give you a hands-on sort of set of ideas for how, not only here in the States, but generally people can get over certain issues. It is interesting, when I was listening to the previous presentation, and I was thinking, India is a culture of contact. India is a culture of a group mentality. India is focused on society. The Western world is more, as you know, an individualistic society, focused on the individual, focused on the individual sort of desires and faculties and, in a way, potential. And as the previous speaker mentioned, yes, this is a global crisis. So now we're going to have to come to terms with the fact that we need to think about our situation in common terms, because we're all humans. And whether we're creating a particular culture of communication or not, the specifics seem to not be as relevant in a situation like this. So mindfulness, just to start with something that is in the common narrative in all the countries that are suffering from this type of crisis that is going on with COVID-19. Mindfulness is a term. I did a little bit of research, and it's a term that was introduced by a Pali scholar. And Thomas Davids actually decided to translate the dialogue between King Milinda or Menander, who is asking questions to his teacher Nagasena. And he asks, and what is the mark of sati, mindfulness, calling to mind and taking up? Actually, smriti is the answer. How is calling to mind the mark of mindfulness, of sati? Well, Nagasena answers, when mindfulness arises, one calls to mind the dharmas, the elements of existence, which participate in what is wholesome and unwholesome, what is blamable and blameless, what is inferior and sublime, dark and light. So in a way, mindfulness here is immediately related to what we not only remember, but what we recall in our mind. And this is the explanation. As you can see, I was trying from the Dhammapada to get the combination between sati and smriti and how they're synonyms. In early Buddhist context, the practice of mindfulness seems to include an aspect of memory. But it is also a cognitive, evaluative aspect. And sati is this mental faculty that also signifies the presence of mind, attentiveness to the present, awareness. Nowadays, in the yoga that is being taught in the West, the meaning of mindfulness has changed a little bit. But I would like to stay in the sort of early context, the one context that was created because of a dialogue between many philosophers, and the one context that was built in order for philosophers to conceptualize those things that until today, Western philosophy hasn't been able to conceptualize. So I find a particular research by Daniel Cardaro and Dr. Keltner very interesting, because it went along an idea that both of them were thinking about for a long time, examining how different cultures talk about human emotions and how different cultures identify human emotions. Their, in a way, moment of enlightenment came when they visited nomads in the Himalaya in eastern Bhutan. And they were able to accurately pinpoint the images of emotion by calling the emotions, by naming the emotions according to their perception, with very high percentage. But then when it came to the feeling of being content, they were silent. They couldn't call it necessarily an emotion, because to them, emotion is something transitory. And what they said was something that the researchers found extremely intriguing and actually continued their research. And based on that, they came up with a few ideas, which is nowadays a kind of platform for training for wellness and mindfulness. And I think that Danielle Cordaro, and Anuradha will confirm, Danielle Cordaro nowadays teaches at Yale University, where she got certified in well-being and mindfulness. So going back to their story, the translator, the local guy, said the following: in our culture, this emotion, which is contentment, is very special. It is the highest achievement of human well-being, and it is what the greatest enlightened masters have been writing about for thousands of years. It's hard to translate it exactly, but the closest word is chokshay, which is a very deep and spiritual word that means the knowledge of enough. It basically means that right here, right now, everything is perfect as it is, regardless of what you're experiencing outside. And then the next question is contentment satisfaction? And then, of course, even on the intuitive level, we can make a distinction between contentment and satisfaction, because satisfaction is related to very specific goals, which possibly were or were not met, achieved, from which satisfaction or dissatisfaction arises. Whereas contentment, as we sort of heard it from the translator of these nomadic tribes, and what we know also, is something more durable, something more stable, because it seems to not be affected by outside circumstances and outside factors. So when we're thinking about contentment, the word itself comes from Latin, contentus, which actually means held together or intact, something that is whole. Originally, actually, it was used to mean some kind of container that would have everything inside as a whole thing. And then later on, it developed into no more for a personal trait. I looked into some Sanskrit texts, and of course, the word and concept of santosh resurfaced. And then here we have san, which means entirely, altogether, and tosh or tusht, meaning satisfied or joyful, but it has sort of this more abstract concept than just being satisfied from a thing. And that's how it's used in the Sanskrit texts. So moving on, very often we try to oppose the Western and the Eastern philosophy of being happy. What does it mean in one type of cultures, and whether it means something different in other kinds of cultures? And we're trying to oppose them. And we always say, oh, but the concept of happiness is different from the concept of being content. So at this point, I thought, okay, let me look at what Aristotle and Plato and maybe the Epicurean tradition, what they meant by this is the word eudaimonia, which means happiness. Eu is an affix. It means well, And then daimon, we know demon, it's the sort of the spirit, it's a spiritual being, it's a guardian spirit. And at the time when the first philosophers were talking about some kind of positive state of mind, they meant either maybe achieving a state of being similar to a benevolent deity, or maybe they meant being protected and looked after by a benevolent deity. That's fine. We're going to take away the mythological and the religious meaning, and we're going to jump into what Aristotle understood by eudaimonia, which is a life of virtuous activity in accordance with reason. But he meant this activity to be both on in the individual domain or in the social domain. And it was the same sort of understanding that Plato had about life. However, for him, the virtue was of justice. And then there was the concept of a just soul, that is the only soul that is capable of achieving eudaimonia. But then we look at what happiness means in the ancient Indian Sanskrit texts. And we find right away in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, we find two immediate sort of explanations. One is purity, contentment, austerity, self-study, and self-surrender constitute niyamaha, constitute, you can call them rules, regulations, observances. So purity and contentment are there as sort of the most important niyamas in order for the other ones to be achieved. And then in another sutra, Patanjali says, from contentment, santoshat, unsurpassed happiness is gained. Anuttam sukha labha. So contentment is a path to happiness, and happiness in both the Hindu and Buddhist tradition is actually outside of this world. It's achievable outside of this world because that's when the soul leaves this world. That's when the soul is not going to come back to this world being reborn. That's the nirvana or the nibbana or the moksha or the mukti. Interestingly, Dhammapada also has this idea of contentment as something that is a part of a positive, stable mind. And in the Dhammapada, in verse 204, we see health is the greatest gift, arogya aparmalabha, and then we have contentment is the greatest wealth, where santushti param dhanam, and then a trusted friend is the best relative, and nibbana or nirvana, or the greatest bliss, meaning sukham, meaning happiness. Shankaracharya also talks about tushta and contentment, and he gives very interesting connection between tushta and santosh being related to the physical world, and sukham not being related to the physical world. But there are ways to become tushta without being dependent on the physical world. And this is something that Muni, Rishi say a real yogi can achieve in their life. And it's one of the goals of life, in order to have this positive and this constructive sort of approach to life. This is a story about Mullah Nasaruddin, who had and this is in the common discourse in India that I enjoy a lot. It's how you construct a narrative about being content, and how Mullah Nasaruddin had a field and was always complaining because there was no rain and there were no crops. And when the rain came and when the crops came, everyone thought, oh, Nasaruddin will stop complaining. But he didn't, because now there was a lot of work. So here the sort of the Sandesh being Nasaruddin can never be happy no matter what, because he's unable to detach himself from his dependence to the outside world. And going back to the research that I mentioned to you in the beginning, that is conducted at Yale University, two strategies were sort of conceptualized. One is the more strategy, and one is the enough strategy. The more strategy is about people who want to have money, power, who want to have validation, who want to have success, and all this being dependent on the outside world, all this being sort of out of their hands, not everything not in control of their hands is what they depend on. And here is the paradox. Why, when something you cannot control, you consider the most important? And then the other side, the enough strategy, is people direct their attention inwardly to find a balance. And they, no matter what happens externally, are positive and happy internally. And this is the enough strategy. So the more and the enough are strategies that we can think of as maybe helping us to sort of strike a balance in our lives. How dependent are we on the material world? I'm not going to mention Bhagavad Gita. I'm not going to mention other texts that ask us to detach ourselves from our dependence of desires that are always focused on the material world. These are two approaches to well-being with different duration, however. You can be happy if you are the more if you're a follower of the more strategy, but that happiness is instantaneous. It's short. Whereas the enough strategy gives you a chance to be stable, to be balanced. And that's why we call these opposite directions to life. One is inwardly, the other one is outwardly. And during COVID, we're thinking, okay, if the outside world is something that we're unhappy with, what can we do? How can we still keep our mental health and well-being? Because we know everything is temporary. We know everything is transitional, and we have to be there for our friends, for our family. We have to be there for our colleagues, maybe in a few months, maybe in a few weeks, maybe in a year. But we have to keep having a healthy inside mind and activity. So this research led to ideas about mindfulness that it defines it as the cultivation of focused attention to the present moment without judging your experiences as good or bad. This is what mindfulness is, where the judging, the evaluation is not there in positive or negative terms. And then there are the well-being contingencies that every individual needs to be aware of. What are those external factors without which the human being is incomplete, or the particular individual is incomplete? And then this is a very interesting idea about radically accepting all emotions, not avoiding, not neglecting, not running away, not suppressing or clinging to, but letting these emotions be as the waves in an ocean where they happen. We accept them, and hence this way we accept the fact that we are humans and our human nature is a part of this kind of response to the outside world, but yet we're in control, because this response is not going to affect our inside balance and well-being. At this point, this was sort of deconstructing the terminology in a way and thinking about mindfulness and well-being in very authentic ways that both West and East have, but it's more on the philological and theoretical level. Anuradha Puri now will take the floor, and she will tell us what it means in the US to have a certificate, and what mindfulness means according to the programs that teach coaches that are helping people who need some kind of support to keep their well-being, to preserve their mental health, and to be able to be fully engaged in the social realm. Anuradha, are you ready?
Yes, Gabrielle G. I'm just going to share my presentation. Okay. Can you see my window?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Maybe you need to click the additional share.
Share. Okay, it says stop sharing. Okay, perfect.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect. I got it. Thank you. Yes. Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Gabriella G. Good evening, good afternoon, I guess, in India, right? And good morning to everyone. I'm so happy and delighted to be part of this talk. I would like to start with some interesting things that Gabrielle has shared. And thank you, Gabrielle G, for sharing all the wonderful things to explain what mindfulness is by sharing the, our ancient texts. Actually, it means a lot. I wanted to add that in my slide, but thank you for doing that. Then mindfulness concept is the compilation of all from all different, spiritual texts like Buddhism and Hinduism. So thank you for doing that. So today we'll be learning about mindfulness. So why it's important to practice mindfulness during the time of pandemic. So that is what I'm going to talk about. So first slide, as you can see about this picture, mindful or mindful, and that's a two-way to see, right? The pictures says a lot as it is. Our mind are so conditioned through our individual experiences. Our mind has been programmed in such a way that it is always occupied with tons of thoughts, always thinking of past or future, and unable to live in present. Where, on the other hand, if you have a dog, if you take your dog or notice a dog, they have a tendency to sniff the grass, barks on others, and eliminate the urges when it needed. So what does this reflect to us? How thoughts takes our mind away from the present moment. And to understand what mindfulness is and how these thoughts works in our mind, right? So I'll draw attention, as Gabrielle also mentioned before, bringing our awareness on purpose to our present experience non-judgmentally. So non-judgmentally is very important to understand, means by not overthinking in that moment. We're not, analyzing or judging someone, that why, how, when, all those things. So understanding your triggers and having skills to self-regulate your emotions and thoughts. So the trigger point, I'll emphasize a little bit here because it's very important. Everybody has a trigger points. I'm sure nobody's perfect. So with mindful practices, we do have that understanding that we can bring our attention or focus to those trigger points, right? So that means to identify what are the things or situations which takes away one's peace of mind. So I will make you understand what that means. For example, like you can take any example, like well-organized people can easily caught up in arguments to get angry when things are not organized. That's the one way to look at it. But let's take the scenario of today's COVID situation, when people are watching or listening COVID news, can stimulate anyone's emotions. It can build frustration, depression, anxiety, or what to say for those who are suffering with anxiety, especially with the kids, who are special needs or who are always nervous and also have the tendency of anxiousness. So this is a lot of effect on their mind, right? So you need to just look on the situation right now. I'm giving you like a groundwork right now, like how the environment is and how we act and react on this. And it's very important to be mindful of what triggers us or how we regulate our thoughts and emotions through mindful practices. So if you have a child who has a anxiety problem and watching such news or listening conversation, it's not healthy, right? And it's like it's very challenging. They're challenged and it's more challenging for them. So what we can do, how mindful practices can help us to how to serve them and also how to help ourselves. So I will say, when we can regulate our emotions and thoughts through mindful practices, that means to take a rest between two breaths or pause for some time to identify your trigger points. So also, the quality of the attention is more important than the object of attention. And we will understand and practice as I move on. So, and it's all this definition as you have on the screen is based on John Kabat-Zinn's MBSR program, which is a mindfulness-based stress reduction. And he has come up with this definition and this the program where he introduced this mindfulness in the healthcare system and help people with the mental illness, and also introduce a program within the school. Now, mindfulness is built within the schools, and teachers actually implementing in their classes and helping kids. So it's supported by the data and research in areas such as neuroscience, immune function, education, sports, the military, and workplace satisfaction and productivity. So this slide, as you can see, mindfulness and social well-being, they goes in hand in hand. Mindfulness actually is the key to the door of our inner and social well-being. Practicing mindfulness helps us to remove the fog of the mind. So how they are connected, that's what I'm going to explain. And as I said, it removes the fog of the mind and gives us a clear picture to live mindfully in the moment, in the present moment. I will emphasize this word again and again because that's this is a key point. Present moment. Human beings are social creatures. And during pandemic, we have the tendencies to miss our friends, family. It's very natural and want to know what's happening around us, right? But during the pandemic, when we have so much limitation not to go out, keep 6 feet distant or wear masks or use hand sanitizers, it is also mindful practice. It's nothing that, giving us that frustration. It is a frustration, but at the same time, but by the practicing mindfulness is helping others also. So like how to protect yourself and others. So we understand that we are sailing in the same boat, but what can anchor us to stay calm and safe in this chaotic situation is very important. So instead of thinking of the problems, we need to find the solutions. So as a social creatures, we always want to be happy. And this understanding has come from the program which I did from Yale University. And I was so happy to do this program. And they have come up with the what social well-being is through science of well-being. So with a better understanding, with a lot of research has been done behind it. And these suggestions I'll be giving to the students who are in the college and in the process of learning where they are actually thinking of doing jobs and creating jobs or getting jobs and earning money. So is this sufficient for us to fulfill our lives with this? But for with the understanding of science of well-being, they said, as a human creature, we always want to be happy, right? We all want to be happy. And for this reason, people find happiness from, outside, like looking beautiful, having a good relationship, want to earn money, buying designer bags or anything, or buying for example, new cars, right? But does it gives us happiness? There's always a threshold. It's always a stagnation point where we feel bored of these things. So what we should do? What is the long-term happiness? So we need to understand and find those things around by not just like getting things from materials, not by accumulating materials and still have dissatisfaction, because we have a tendency to keep on piling more things, right? There's always a dissatisfaction. As Gabriel says, what is the meaning of contentment, right? That contentment only comes when we get involved and get experience in life, involved in life, live your life fully, go beyond your limitations, like getting involved in volunteer service, and understand your abilities, capabilities to do things. So I will just read few things which I have written, like I'll quickly read that, how you can engage that yourself. So when I say outdoor activities, that means you can go early morning walks, spending time in nature, stargazing, journaling, reading books, talk with mind-like people, practicing meditation and yoga, cultivating new habits like painting, embroidery, spend time to talk with your family members. Now we have so much time to, at home, and try new recipes, cook together, and gardening or creating kitchen gardens. So it's all very nourishing. So characteristics of mindfulness, its relation to our well-being. So internationality to be attentive, and openness to be present and honest. So with what is happening in the moment and observing what is happening rather than trying to control experience. So when emphasis to control experience, what will happen if you really want to practice mindfulness, and okay, maybe we can say, okay, from today onwards we can practice mindfulness, so let's learn some techniques or something. So in the beginning, the mindful practitioner might complain, right? I cannot control my thoughts. I tried, and then they try to force to shut their thoughts, and so I want to emphasize that mindfulness is not meditation. Meditation is different than mindfulness. So when you say the controlling experience, that means that you are shutting yourself. You are becoming too harsh to yourself. So the goal of mindfulness is not to get rid of thoughts. Thoughts are part of our human experience. Training the mind is different than fighting with the mind. When we train our mind, we literally practicing kindness, swadhyaya, self-study, as Gabriel also mentioned from those texts. It's very important to understand the condition of our mind, and it's okay. But now, if this is a time when we feel that during COVID, we can enhance our lives better, then it's very important to get into your inner being. When we train our mind, we literally practicing to be gentle. So that means gentle to yourself and respect your thoughts through non-violence. Don't shut yourself. So respect your thoughts, your habits, your feelings, and your body. So if we push away our thoughts, we become too harsh on ourselves, and that means there is no room of kindness. So if you are kind to yourself, we are kind to others. But practice starts from home. And your inner being is your kind, loving, peaceful, mindful home, where you can create and influence people with whom you are connected. So here comes the connection, the social well-being. So mindfulness and social well-being goes hand in hand. So mindfulness is about our well-being and the well-being of those around us and the planet which support our life. It's a way of understanding the causes of the happiness and the causes of stress and dissatisfaction. As we learn to pay attention to experience, we begin to find ways to live in that's really work. So I would like to share this interesting autobiography in 5 short chapters by Portia Nelson. It's amazing. So I'll just read out, and it's very easy to understand it as I go slow. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes me forever to find a way out. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. I walk down another street. So it's all about how we can identify our old habits mindfully. So find a way to get rid of it, accept that it is not working. So once you find a way, you will not do the same mistake, and you will be in a better place. You will adapt a new habit, which will help you to grow. So also, if you think that we cannot cultivate habits, we cannot rewire our mind, it's a mistaken. I would like to play a short video, which is for a minute, 2 minutes, so that will make you understand how our brain works and how we can wire our brain. Rewire our brain. So here's a video.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work?
Anu, there is an echoing.
Power grid.
Anu,
Pathways,
Yeah.
roads.
there is an echoing we can't hear, so why don't you tell us what it is? And anyways, we're being
Oh,
short
okay.
of time.
I understand.
So maybe you can share the link to the video, but when you have a couple more slides, please. We have 5 more minutes or less, so let's move on.
Okay, why my presentation gone? Okay, here. Yeah, I'm back. So they said we can rewire our mind because they said that they have the 3 portion. Actually, I will share the link so that I can move forward. I'm like out of the time, so I understand. So I will share this link after. So mindful practice experience. So you may already have an activity, sports, or hobby that you enjoy, and when you are fully engaged or in the zone, mindfulness can be practiced anywhere, anytime. Short moments of mindful awareness, repeated many times, usually becomes more continuous and automatic. Noticing and interrupting or pausing the judgmental narrative of our thoughts builds the awareness habit. So I will definitely emphasize on anywhere and anytime. And also the short moments of mindful awareness. So as I will take you to even a short mindful practice, and I will explain you there what I mean. So I have learned a lot with this technique, which the Whoop technique. This Whoop technique is amazing technique to it's a tool actually that for those who really want to build a habit or want to let go of something, So WOOP. So W means wish. Wish one thing of the day, a week, month, or year that you can do what you want to do. So that means your intention of that day. It can be for that day or for the week or for, So let's take, I got an example. I just, for this topic, I took the example. So during pandemic, how negative incidents will not impact my lifestyle. So if I wake up with this thought, how I'm going to work. So the O is outcome. Think of the outcome of your wish. It will make me focus, strong, calm, happy, and more productive. And O, which is obstacles, recognize the obstacles, what you experience it or feel it. Lack of focus, maybe too much negative news, lack of motivation, sleeplessness, anxiety. And then you plan how to get rid of those obstacles. What would be effective actions to overcome that obstacle? So mindful practice like breathing, listening to motivational podcasts, doing yoga, singing, all those things you can do. But this Whoop is amazing tool for all the students who are, and for anyone actually, who really want to cultivate one habit, because you are still growing, you're still nurturing yourself. It's a very good technique if you really want to build one practice. It can be a yoga, it can be your meditation, whatever is going to help you during pandemic. Please use this tool. As I'm saying, Whoop, WOOP, wish, outcome, obstacles, and planning. You may actually write this right now somewhere that you will never forget and implement it. And I have implemented this tool to learn to change my habits, and trust me, it has worked amazingly. It's a beautiful practice. And for this reason, I would like you to practice mindful breathing so that you have some tool from me so that you would like to adapt in your life, and you can practice anytime, anywhere. So wherever you are sitting, my dear friends, you can sit or stand with a straight but comfortable posture. Take a minute or two to adjust yourself. Close your eyes or look down. Relax your shoulders, hands onto your lap. So notice your breaths. Notice one in breath and one out breath. Breathing in through your nose, being aware of your body, how it moves. Maybe your belly rises. As you exhale through your nose, your belly falls. Breathe in really deep and exhaling out. Maybe you can anchor your hand, your attention to that area as you continue to breathe normally. You can place your hand onto your belly, on your heart, or in front of your nose to anchor your breaths. Notice when your mind wanders, and non-judgmentally redirect your attention to your breathing. Slowly and very slowly open your eyes. And my next slide, which tells you benefit of mindfulness practice. Day to day, increase in immunity, better sleep, more self-control, higher creativity, happiness, well-being, empathy, compassion, and at work, increases in focus, job satisfaction, invocation, productivity, collaboration, awareness, and emotional intelligence for all these students, my dear, who will be, getting all the skills. It's very important to even learn what you are learning through mindfulness practices. If you adapt one of the practice, that would be amazing. So it also decreases the absenteeism and stress out reactions, reductions in blood pressure, anxiety, and healthcare cause less distraction and mind wandering. So this is the end of my presentation for today. And I highly recommend to the moment-to-moment mindful practices will increase the awareness of your inner well-being, because the practice starts from home. Start to enrich your inner well-being. And moment to moment, I'll just finish with that. As I promised, that what I mean is that first is your breathing. Then whatever you do at home, any chores you are engaged in, it can be just doing your brush. For example, in the morning, you do your brush, just be aware how you're brushing. Don't think about how you're going to, what are your plans for today. just be with yourself at that time, where you notice how your left hand is, how you are hunching your back, how notice the running of water, and feel the ground under your feet. Even while you're eating, you just be notice your thoughts or emotions, and just be aware of your bites, and nourish yourself with that understanding that how much you are putting in your body. So simple practices, even washing the dishes or walking, anything you do, it just come through mindfulness, and that will it will definitely going to affect your environment with the people you are connected with. Okay, my dear friends, I'm going to end with this. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Anuradha. This was really helpful. Pritesh Chakraborty, he shared a link on YouTube with what NYU shares as easy to follow ideas for how to deal with the maybe with the situation and mental sort of stability. We're going to share our presentations. Thank you for inviting us. This was really an interesting moment to have us ponder over things that usually we take for granted and we think of them in more theoretical terms, but now it's time to think more in terms of application, and this is what the South Asian tradition and ancient India has developed to a degree that no other culture in the world has developed, where if there is a particular theoretical idea, it has its guide for hands-on application. Let's think in these terms as well. And again, we wish everyone good health and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We learned a lot from both of you, ma'am, Gebila ma'am and Anuradha ma'am. It will help us improve our mental health and social well-being. Thank you very much, ma'am. Now I welcome on stage Professor Dr. Dibyendu Bhattacharya, Head Department of Education, University of Kolani, to put his view across. Sir.
Good afternoon, all of you. In the international webinar, mental health and social well-being in pandemic situation. Before starting, I am just uploading my presentation. So, yes, is it visible now? Hello? Is it visible now? Hello? Hello? Is it visible?
Yes, I think I can see it on my screen. So I think it's visible.
Okay. Thank you. Just okay. Once again, just I'm starting my lecture. Then already we heard 3 lectures, and I first of all I convey my deepest gratitude to Professor Nikiliva for his wonderful session, and also Professor Anuradha Puri. Both of them are very presenting their very inside from their very inside. They are presenting their lecture, and I'm also convey my thanks to Professor Chattopadhyay to have a very good session. Now I am presenting my deliberation, and the today's basic theme of the today's lecture is that it is a mental health and social well-being, and obviously the context is a pandemic situation. Obviously the session, it is a pandemic situation. Now the question, very essential question, what are the contexts on the basis of which we are starting our discussion? And you see, in the pandemic situation, whatever the persons we are, either students or teachers or whoever the person, we are in an uncertain position. So uncertainty is the point on the basis of which it hampers our mental stability. So how mental health is supporting ourselves, that I discuss later on. But what are the context on the basis of which our mental health is under crisis? That is the first context, first slide I want to describe. That it is the uncertainty of the social context which hampers our mental stability, which hampers our mental happiness, etc. So whoever the person, students are now in an uncertain position. They do not know when their exam will start. As a teacher, you do not know what will happen in future, in which time the school will open, college will open, university will open, etc. So the first point is uncertainty is the point on the basis of which our thinking strategies or thinking procedures that has been rooted. And the second point, you know that it is the social mobility. And you see the social mobility is very much fluctuating in the pandemic situation. Sometimes we have downward mobility, sometimes we have the upward mobility. So it is another point, the social mobility, on the basis of which our society has been uprooted. And the third point is, you see, the socio-economic status. It is a deep concern, especially in our country, because you see the GDP has been gradually going down. It is going down throughout the world, but in case of our country, it is not in the very good position. So in each and every time, in socio-economic conditions, socio-economic status is another point we consider. In case of our anxiety, in case of our frustration, in case of our so many mental problems we are facing on the basis of socio-economic status. And another point that is very interesting, that is media. So media is always giving news how coronavirus, how it is hampering our life, how it has been increasing regularly day by day. So such kind of repeating the news, media enhancing our mental stress. So media is another point we consider. And finally, you see that the regular way of life of human being that has been highly disturbed by the pandemic situation. That we are not doing what we should do. The students are not doing, they should go to the school, colleges, universities, they are not able to do that. And even the teachers, even the parents, even the workers, etc., we are not doing what we should do. So therefore, regularity is another problem. Regularity of life, regular way of life is another point which we consider here. So on the basis of context, we can say there are different divergent points. There are different divergent dimensions which when meeting a single point, it creates the tension, it creates the anxiety, it creates a disturbance of mind, and it creates so many things. So that is how different social forces, different mental forces, different physical forces that has been under question in the time of pandemic situation. And you know that in case of World Health Organization report, it has been reported that as many as 450 million people suffer from a mental or behavioral disorder, right? And nearly 1 million people commit suicide every year. So if we consider our daily routine, we see so many persons in our surroundings, in our society, and here it is noticed that reported that 1 in 4 families, out of 4 family, there is 1 family where so many members are now in mental distress or mental crisis or in mental problems. So that is how we can explain that the condition of our mentality, conditions of our mind, conditions of our stress that has been always with us previously, and also it is gradually raising its height in the time of pandemic or during pandemic situation. So we have to look about the matter. But yes, basically we concentrating ourselves that how that can be resist, because we are not going to the different points regarding mental health. What are the sources, that is how mental health has been disturbed, etc. These are all the points that has been reported by World Health Organization. But we are concentrating now to how the mental health of ours can be restored, how the mental health of ours can be good condition, can have a good condition. So that is the points we consider. But naturally we are coming to the next point, that is uh, what is the conditions, what are the conditions on the basis of which mental health can be stored, can be restored, can be possible to a very good position or good form of our mental health. And that is how, what is how it is to be defined. That is, mind is the conscious as well as unconscious part of human being that has been attributed the well-being of our mental health. So that is the firstly that it has been pointed out. Actually, mind is the summation. Mind is the summation of two parts. That one part is the conscious part and another is the unconscious part. Right. So mind is a summation of conscious part and unconscious part. And what is the conscious part? Conscious part, when mind has been exercised with some senses, with some activities, with some working organs. So like that, mind has had some conscious aspect of human being. And similarly, when we are conscious, we see that we are applying different forms of controlling mechanism to control over our mind. And similarly, in case of unconscious part, and you see that in case of unconscious part, that is the part which is unexpressed. The part which is unexpressed. Suppose you see that in different cases, our mission, our vision, our motivation, our interest, that is not all time we are not exposed externally. So we have something, our mentality, that is not expressed. So we have some internality, we have some externality. So the conscious part of human being, that is the external part of the human being, which is consciously doing such kind of activities or different form of activities. And in case of unconscious part, which is the unexpressed part of our mind. So that is how mind can be explained. That it is a summation of conscious part and the unconscious part. Yes, when we have the more conscious part, then we have good mental health. And when we have the less conscious part, we have less mental health. And similarly, if our unconscious part is bigger and bigger, then we have the less mental health. And when the unconscious part is less, mental health is better. So unconscious part and mental health, it is inversely proportional. So unconscious part and mental health is inversely proportional. And similarly, conscious part is the, and mental health is, it is proportional. That is, if consciousness is better, the mental health will be better. If consciousness is less, mental health will be less. But opposite scene, we have our experience when unconscious part will be better, will be greater than the mental health will be less. And when it will be less unconscious part, then the mental health will be better. So yes, mind is the both the summation of conscious part and unconscious part, and the balancing of conscious and unconscious part of a human being. That is how we can have our mental health. And next point, next slide, we try to explain that actually our mind is a three-dimensional structure consisting of subjective well-being, cognitive well-being, and the axiological well-being. And therefore, you see that if we have our own happiness, suppose you have everything, you have good socio-economic condition, you have good flat in very upgraded city, you have so many things you have, but that does not stand for you are well mental health, you have good mental health. Because so besides your subjective well-being, you should require cognitive well-being. That is the knowledge and potentiality of human being. If you don't have knowledge and potentiality, you don't have the good mental health. Whatever the choice you have, whatever the subjective well-being you have, whatever the mindfulness you have, unless you have the knowledge. So try to understand knowledge and potentiality is very important for having good mental health. And the third one is the axiological well-being, and it stands for the morality, ethics, judgment, or like such kind of points. And we have to realize both subjective morality and objective morality both are required for the axiological standpoint, because we have a judgmental mind, so that we can judge what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. So we can say that the summation of subjective well-being, cognitive well-being, and axiological well-being, that is how we can explain the mental health of human being. So subjective well-being actually stands for the different life satisfaction, different happiness of human being, or subjective happiness or subjective life satisfaction, etc. So that we can have our perceived self-efficacy. And so if we have our self-efficacy, own ability to judge ourselves, so that we can determine how people, from our own subjective well-being, we can determine how we can think, how we can motivate, how we can understand. So if we have our right thinking, if we have our right motivation, if we have our right understanding, that is how we can control ourselves. That is termed as subjective well-being. And similarly, we should have the positive approach. We should have the cognitive evaluation. We should have the conception about the expansion of ours. And similarly, different self-supported mechanisms we have to gather from the daily way of our life, regular way of life, so that we have had our subjective well-being. So for a good mental health, we should have developed a good mental structure, and that mental structure must be supported by the subjective well-being, by the cognitive well-being, and the axiological well-being. When Professor Gabriel and Ikeliba told that the Aristotle told for the reason, life for reason, and that is stand for the cognitive well-being. That is stand for cognitive well-being. And when Plato told that just life for justice, like that is called the axiological standpoint. So whatever the Aristotle paper, and if we summed up all the basic points, then we can have a clear door to explain the mental health, and that is how the subjective well-being and cognitive well-being and axiological well-being go hand in hand to have a better output towards our mental health. And naturally, we can just define what is the meaning of mental health. Mental is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. That is the organization, and we are already explained this definition, that no single entity is not sufficient enough for our mental health. It requires our physical posture, it requires our mental, it requires our social standing. Is told very clearly, Atmano Mokshatam Jagodhita, that is for betterment of our life, it requires Atmano Mokshatam, that is the self-emancipation, that is self-development, subjective well-being, and as well as Jagodhita, that is the development of the world. So when the world and the subjects, and the moksha is the axiological well-being, comes all together, that is how we can have our emancipation, that is we can have our values of our life, and that is how we can have our mental peace, mental well-being, and that is leading to mental health of our life. So, so when we are talking about Atmona Mokshatham Jagodhitaya cha, that is the summation of Atma, that is subjective well-being, that is the Moksha, that is the axiological well-being, and that is the Jagodhitaya cha, that is the social well-being. So when these three are combined together, that is how we can have our good mental health. It is, we can define it, we can judge it from the report of the World Health Organization. And that is why we are talking about that mental health actually is a structural entity, summation of, or amalgamated of, or integration of subjective well-being, cognitive well-being, and axiological well-being. We cannot have our good mental health without our mental happiness, without our mental well-being, without our mindfulness, as stated by Professor Gabriel and Clever. And similarly, we should have reason that is stated by the Aristotle. It requires our different forms of logic that is we have from philosophy. That is with the state of some epistemological structure that is we have from the philosophical standpoint. So cognitive well-being is very much required for the development of our mentality, for the development of our cognition. Because throughout the world, we are always accepting the point. Knowledge is power, because there is nothing in the world which is the parallel force of knowledge. So those who have knowledge, those who have the power. Those who have the power, those who have the health. Those who have the health, he can control the mechanism, control the mind. So mind stands for the cognitive well-being. So without cognitive well-being, we cannot explain our mental health. So in most of the time, we are talking about the subjective well-being, but yes, we have to realize that cognitive well-being is a very important point for have our mental strength, mental health. And similarly, in the next point of what we see, next point, that basic functions. We are talking about our basic function is three. The first one is the manifestation of your mind. Second, when mind is related to different activities, and third one is the retardation. The point is retardation. So, what is meant by manifestation? Manifestation means you try to explore yourself. Manifestation means you try to develop yourself. Manifestation stands for you have to develop your oneself. So our ability or your ability, we have to manifest. And if we are able to manifest ourselves, then we have the ability to cope with the situation. We have the ability to control over our mind, right? So our ability is very much related to the manifestation. And similarly, Swami Vivekananda rightly stated that education stands for manifestation your perfection. So in the term manifestation, mind always try to expose itself or explore itself on the basis of perfection. Right? We are always trying to do something which is near about perfection. So perfection is another character of human being or human mind. So that is the second point, perfection. And third one, obviously, to develop our potentiality. So if you have potential enough, then you have the good mental health. If you are perfect enough, you have the good mental health. If you have your own ability, if you have the conception that you are abled person, if you have the conception you are able to do so many things, so such kind of self-satisfaction, self-ability leading you the mental health. So for better mental health, manifestation is very much important point. And the second, mind has to be nurtured, mind discussed, or mind has to be collaborated with different forms of activity. So activity is very much important. You cannot have your good mental health without activity. If you always try to do something, you always try to activate yourself in different forms of suppose in case of sports, you are engage yourself in different form of sports. In case of education, you are engaging yourself in different forms of academic life, academic situation, collaboration, different kinds of projects, different types of academic fields. Then it is how you can able to able to activate yourself in the form of good practicing of your life, which actually leading you in a form of good mental health. And obviously this kind of activity is related to the cooperative activity also. So if you have different participatory approach, if you have different collaborative approach, if you have different cooperative approach, then you see, then it will have a form of good mental health on the basis of activity. So you can have your good mental health on the basis of manifestation. You can have your good mental health on the basis of activity. And similarly, you see the third point is some negative points, retardation. You see, what about the form of our mind? Our mind has always some negative aspects, which is common terms we are termed as we are now in the frustration. We are now some different form of disorders we are talking about that. So mind is some always giving some parallel thinking, parallel thought procedure, parallel different form of parallel activities. So we are always some retarding forces, and for having good mental health, we have to cross those obstructions. We have to cross those obstacles. So we have to accelerating our mind. We have to always accelerating our mind to control that retardation. So you see, in case of Patanjali, what is written in the Patanjali Sutra number 1, that is termed as Chitta Vritti Nirodho. So that is very important. Our mind has to be a position, a disposition like that where there is no activity. Suppose you see, you cannot contemplate like a situation. Suppose you are sitting in a chair and thinking, I do not think anything, I do not have any contemplation. Then you see, so many thinking will come in your mind because it is very difficult. And therefore Patanjali said, the mind is the meaning of mind controlling of mind. It means you have to control your activity, which activate your mind. So Chitta Vritti Nirodho, that is stands for you have to control the different activities which is related to mind, and it is better to control, better not to think anything. And that is how you can explain your state of mind. So that is the term manifestation, activity, and retardation, on the basis of which we can explain the basic functions of human being. And you see that we sometimes we are talking about mind, but mind is not isolated from our other parts of the human body of the human being. It is related to our senses, it is related to our sense organs, and it is related to our working organs. So mental health is possible when mind is exercised with our working organs, mind is exercised with our sense organs. Then we have the good mental health. Then we have the ability to cope with the situation, right? And actually, the terms mind, working organs, and sense organs, we have had it from our Shankha philosophy. Where Shankha philosophy, you see, there are 3 attributes of Prakriti stated by the Shankha philosophy, and one term is there, that is a Shattik. And Shattik attributes is actually, that is the very good qualities of human being, is the summation of mind, that is the 1 point, working organs is the 5 points, and 5 sense organs, that is the another 5 points, that is the summation of 11 points. And you see that your mind, controlling of mind is not possible, never possible, unless your mind is consulted with working organs, your mind is adjusted with your sense organs. Otherwise it is not possible to have a good mental health when mind is amalgamated with working organs and sense organs. And you see that we are talking about the sense is very important. Applying senses is very much important because everything is happening in our surroundings. Not like that when we are discovering anything. Suppose you see that Italy discovered how COVID can be restricted, somewhat restricted on the basis of blood clotting in lungs. and it is and they are by case study 50 to 55 case studies they are discovered that, and similarly Britain, America, they are discovering some different points about COVID, and because that is the by applying their senses, it is possible to applying their senses. And similarly also there is a very important discovery by the Israel, that is most of the candidates of their countries, they are observing there is a lacking of vitamin D3, that is the cause of their COVID. So they are arguing the vitamin D3, if we have our vitamin D3, it will be better for COVID patients. So that is how the science, it is our science. It is not restricted any person not to discover something. Suppose Newton discovered gravitation and he just observed a falling fruit, and it is falling towards gravitation towards earth, and he discovered the gravitational force that causes the falling towards the earth, and it is a great discovery by Newton, and everybody were observing this. But it is our science, development of science, which is not up to the mark, which can catch the discovery, which can explode that discovery, which can explode the world actually. So it is our senses when that is consulted with our mind, it is our senses which consulted with our working organs, that is how our mental development is possible. And for because of that, Rishi Aurobindo told that the sense education means development of senses. And even Montessori, even Froebel, they are also told that similarly, when the education life is consulted with senses, that is how it is possible to have our education to our children. So applying senses in every phase of life, amalgamated with our working organs, that is how it is possible. That is how it is possible to have our good mental health. And therefore you see that when we are talking about our mental health, we are always talking about mind, and besides that mind, we are encouraging different forms of activities. We are encouraging different terms of aesthetic activities. We are encouraging different forms of activities which are related to develop our own potentiality. So components of mental health can be explained on the basis of Shankar philosophy. That is, when mind, when consulted with the working organs, when mind and consulted with the sense organs, and when they are amalgamated, that is how mental health is possible. So we are suggesting in this pandemic situation, we should always engage ourselves in different activities. We are always try to engage ourselves to applying our senses to understand the situation, and to applying that senses to have our better output in our way of life, in our academic field of life, or whatever the life we can consider. So that is how we can explain the different components of our mind which can help our mental stability. So mental health is about enhancing our competencies of individuals and communities and enabling them to achieve their self-determined goals. Mental health should be a concern for all of us, rather than only for those who suffer from a mental disorder. So we have to realize that mental health is not possible by sitting in the chair. Mental health is not possible by sitting in the room. Mental health is not possible by thinking like that. We have to develop our competency. Yes, it is possible to develop our social competency. It is possible to develop our individual competencies. It is possible to develop our different ethics and aesthetics. It is developed to possible our different skill-based competency. So whatever the competencies, if we can able to develop them, that is how we can control ourselves. That is how we can, our mind is always with us, with help with us to do something, able to do something, or creating to do something. So the basic concepts of our mental health is to develop ourselves, to develop our potentiality, to develop our mental forms of actions, different creative forms of activity in the form of competency, so that we can able to develop our mental health or doing something better. So with the kind of discussion, we can say that actually mental health, we have the three perspective, three base. One is the knowledge base, that is we are talking about the cognitive well-being. We have some behavioral base, that is we are talking about the behavioral components, and similarly the aesthetic components, that is we are talking about the aesthetic base. So we have three bases. One is knowledge base of mental health, one is the behavioral base of mental health, and third one is the aesthetic base of mental health. And what is meant by this knowledge base of mental health? Knowledge base of mental health stands for, first one, the epistemological upgradation. That is the first point. That is, we have to develop our knowledge base, knowledge level, and that knowledge we have to realize that knowledge is the knowledge on the basis of our understanding, knowledge on the basis to developing knowledge or creating knowledge. Knowledge is not in the form of information. Knowledge is not in the form of the informative base. The knowledge is in the form of the creation of knowledge or construction of knowledge or the development of knowledge. And the second point is the knowledge base of mental health is the enlightenment of inner structure of human mind. So we have to realize always we have the two forces. One is the external force. We have to manage the externality, and in the similar fashion, we have to enlighten ourselves by developing our inner structure of human mind. Inner structure of our human mind, but we believe that inner structure is not possible, can't possible if you don't have the knowledge, right? So you have to develop yourself, you have to potential yourself, you have to explore yourself, so that you can have the epistemological upgradation, which enlighten yourself, which able to structuring yourself of your inner structuring in the form of enlightenment, in the form of enlightenment of inner structure of human mind. That is the knowledge base of mental health. And second one is the behavioral base, and we can telling about. One is there are some points which is very much related to the externality. There are some points which is very much related to the internality. Internality stands for the knowledge base, and the externality stands for the behavioral base. So we should have some behavioral base adjustment with externality. It requires the personality pattern and the controlling attitude, interest, and motivation. So that is how we can explain the behavioral base. And third one is the aesthetic base of mind. Aesthetic base of mind basically stands for you have to concentrate yourself in the different form of performing arts. You have to concentrate yourself different forms of extracurricular activities, co-curricular activities, different forms of organizational activities, etc. So that you can develop your mind very much sincerely and gradually. If you see in case of Vishwabharati of Rabindranath Tagore, you see they are always practicing aesthetic education. If you see in the case of Ramakrishna Mission, you see they are applying the spiritual education, they are applying the ethical education, they are applying the education on the basis of justice. So aesthetic base of mind, that is also possible by practicing yourself on different forms of aesthetic education, forms of different ethics and aesthetics. If we combine that is possible how we can able to develop our aesthetic base of mind. So that is the initial discussion of mental health, and we can summarize our introductory discussion. That is how we can control your mind, because you say in Pondicherry, Srima told that mind has wing, but it has no brain. So that is the problem of ourselves. We have mind, but it has no brain. If anything that has no brain, that particular thing, they can doing anything and everything according to the situation. So from the definition of mind, it is very much difficult to control our mind because it has no brain. So we can use our mind, our brain according to our wish, and that is how we are talking about the control over our mind. Three bases or three-dimensional structure of human mind. It is suggested, and it is suggested that for controlling our mind, knowledge about a procedure, that is very important. behavioral pattern or attitude or motivation or attitude, that is also very important. And third one is the sense of ethics, sense of aesthetics, that is also very important. And if we combine these 3 points together, that is we have knowledge something. That is we have, and you see the knowledge means the postdoctoral, the knowledge means that does not stand for knowledge. In case of our agriculture, agricultural sector, the persons related to agriculture, they have the knowledge. They have the knowledge of agriculture. So they can have the good mental health. The person who can weaving, they have the knowledge of weaving. So they can have the good mental health. But try to understand, knowledge is very much important. Whatever the position you have, whatever the situation you have, but developing yourself, exploring yourself in terms of knowledge is important. So when knowledge is integrated with your behavioral pattern and something with your aesthetic sense and ethical sense, and that is how you can develop yourself in the form of good mental health, in the form of good mental practices. So that is how we can able to develop our potentiality, develop our integrity, develop our enlightenment of inner senses, so that we have our good mental health. So these are the basic points, but some 2 or 3 points I just want to discuss because time is already over. How such kind of things you can apply in the classroom situation, that is also very important, because in your academic field, it is very much important to nurturing such kind of mental position, mental situation, or developing ourselves, mental development of our mentality in classroom situation. So we are suggesting here in the similar fashion. One is knowledge base. It produces the process of multiplication. Knowledge base gives us the process of multiplication. So multiplication is one process. And second one is the behavioral base, that gives the process of substitution. And the aesthetic base, that gives the process of shifting. So out of the 3 foundations of our mind, 3 fundamental base of our mind, we have 3 processes. One is the multiplication process, one is the substitution process, and another is the shifting process. And you see, when we are doing anything related to our mind, when we are thinking, we are doing, we are creating, we are analyzing, whatever the forms we are engaging ourselves, you see, either we are multiplying anything, either we are substituting anything, or we are shifting anything. So mind is the complex process of multiplication, substitution, and shifting on the basis of knowledge base, on the basis of behavioral base, and on the basis of aesthetic base. So if mind is the complex procedure of multiplication, substitution, and shifting, then we can apply it in the classroom situation by applying multiplication, by applying substitution, and by applying shifting. I give one example just each, one example for each, and to end up my lecture, because this is one form of pedagogy, that it is called the process of diversification. Why it is multiplication? You see, suppose I am giving a point, one stimulus I am giving to the participants, but you see, the point is one, but the responses are many. In a classroom situation, in the similar fashion, if I am talking about that is a plus b whole square is equal to a square plus 2a plus b square, I am talking about a square plus 2a plus b square, but the question raised by the minds of the students, they are different. One talking about what do you mean by square, one can tell why a and b is multiplied for, one tell why all our plus sign is given, etc. So these are the different questions that has been coming from the student days, but the question is one. So there are process of multiplication, there is always going on in classroom situation, and controlling over that multiplication is very much important. So multiplication is a process which gaining a greater and greater concentration gradually on the basis of process of multiplication. That is the first point. And substitution is very much important. Substitution is very much important. When are you giving options? Suppose in classroom situation you are giving options. Suppose you are giving a problem and you say it is possible to solve so many ways. So students are trying to solve the problem in the different ways, so that they have the options. And some students select one option, some students select second option, and like that. And therefore, so if in a project, if in different activities, when we can arrange the project like that, so that students can have different options to select. So that is the substitution process. And shifting is the process, you see, when it requires a skill-based position, when it is related to somewhat enhancing your capabilities on the basis of psychomotor domain. And suppose in some cases, what we find that we have to shift our attention in cognitive domain to psychomotor domain. Suppose one student very much irregular in a classroom situation. In no way we can control that student in a particular situation, and in no way we are able to control in a classroom situation to give some directions, to give some pedagogy, to give some content in the classroom situation. But yes, we consider he or she can be controlled on that part of the classroom situation when we are applying the shifting direction. That is, we are shifting his mental abilities from the academic domain to non-academic domain, from the cognitive domain to psychomotor domain, from the cognitive domain to skill domain, from one domain to another domain. If very fast he or she has no interest in his study or etc. So in case of shifting, we can convert ourselves in the different domains, so that in these cases, first he develop his interest in the new domain, and then we can shift his interest once again in academic domain. So on the basis of three basic foundations of mental abilities of our mind, we have our cognitive domain, and based on that cognitive domain, knowledge based domain, we are talking about multiplication. On the basis of behavioral domain, we are talking about the substitution, and similarly we are talking about our shifting domain. So if we amalgamated these domain, that is how it is possible. It is possible to apply these sciences in the classroom situation for the development of our mental health in classroom situation. Yes, we are always arguing that mental health is not possible only by sitting, only by talking, only by addressing. It is possible by applying your concept in a classroom situation or in whatever the situation it may be. So whatever we call yoga, whatever we call controlling, it should have a mechanism. We have to follow this path. And yes, in classroom situation, it is possible to apply. It is possible to apply the three foundational process. One is multiplication, one is substitution, and one is shifting. And you see, this is the process of multiplication. I am not explaining. This is how the greater concentration is possible in a regular way. And this is a substitution when you have the options, and similarly shifting. So that is how we can have our processes which we can apply in classroom situation to control the mental health of the students in a controlled way, in a better way. And I am just finishing our lecture by showing the what will be our future education, and you see that is based on the epistemological framework, that is based on the knowledge framework, or that is based on our digital age. But whatever the form it may be, epistemological framework is very much important on the basis of indigenous route of education, because what is the indigenous sources that has to be explored. And finally, whatever the education it may be, whatever the mental health we can explain, that is the creativity and the potentiality is very much important. If we have potential, we have the good mental health. If we creative, we have the good mental health. If we try to indigenous education system on the form of activity, yes, it is possible to have a good mental health. If we have the epistemological framework, yes, we can have face the challenge, and even it may be the COVID-19 or etc. So once again, I express my deep thanks or gratitude to the college authority, college principal, college governing body, college president, convener, and to you all, and have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope I'm audible at last. Am I audible? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for your informative presentation and lecture. Now I would shortly introduce Shobhik Nayak, who has been behind this entire webinar. He had been working tirelessly for making this a success, and I believe this is a successful webinar. He is a state-aided college teacher at Acharya Sukumar Sen Mohavidyalaya, and he is also a research scholar in Bardhaman University. And now I will request him to kindly give us the provide us with the vote of thanks. Over to you, Shobhik.
থ্যাংক ইউ পিতেশ স্যার। ওটা কল্যাণ ইউনিভার্সিটি। যাই হোক, ফার্স্ট অফ অল I would like to thank all the esteemed person present here at the event, and I extend my best wishes and heartiest congratulations to all the teachers, students, friends, and my colleagues. We are going through a difficult situation, but we are hopeful that we will overcome all the obstacles and move forward in a new way by using the digital platform. Teachers' Day was celebrated a few days ago. So I would like to congratulate all levels of teachers again on this Teachers' Day. However, for a long time I was planning to hold a seminar like this from our education department. So when I first informed our principal sir, Dr. Jayanto Kumar Mukherjee, about the offer to hold this webinar, he gave me verbal consent. Then I discussed this with our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Pitesh Chakraborty sir. Anyway, I thank both of them for their help and inspiration. I also thankful to principal sir giving me the opportunity for conducting the webinar. Earlier, I listened to Dr. Gabriela Nikiliva madam's speech at a webinar. That's why she came to my mind when I sent this proposal to her through Pitesh sir. She agreed. On behalf of me and my college, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and sharing her idea with us and making the webinar more decorated. And I also thankful to Anuradha Puri madam. He also joined with us today. She also, sorry. Thank you very much, madam. Then I thank Dr. Khagandranath Chattopadhyay, Head Department of Education, Bardhaman University. Although I have known him before, but first time sir joined with us, so we thankful to sir. We hope to get more support from him later, and our department will be more perspective. Now, Dr. Dibyendu Bhattacharya, Head Department of Education, Kolani University. He is the person without whose help I could not do this webinar. He is not only my PhD guide, he also a guardian on this way of my life. First, he gave me a specific guideline about this webinar and extend a helping hand in a consensual way to manage it smoothly. He has enriched our department with his time deposit, his busy schedule. Many thanks and sincere thanks to him for me and our college to that. Above all, I would like to extend my sincere congratulations to all the teachers and students of my education department, those who have always extended a helping hand from all sides. Education is a multidisciplinary subject. That's in my mind. We have come up with a topic that's relevant to all the subject and relevant to the current situation. So thank you all the students and teachers of others department beside our education department. Thanks to Dr. Pradip Majumdar, President of our College Management Committee, and Dr. Tushar Kantipal, former acting teacher in charge, and also thankful to Dr. Biswajit Panda, Professor of Acharya Sukumar Sen Mahavidyalaya. I would also like to extend our sincere congratulations and thank to the professor, research scholars, students from all levels of other educational institutions outside of our college, without whose participation this webinar would not be a success. I apologize for any inconvenience this seminar may have caused. I hope this webinar help you all to move forward academically or otherwise. Thanks and appreciation to our technical assistant, Mr. Suman Roy, Babusona Sahani, and Partho Dibor, also Pintu sir, for watching and listening to this beautiful program live for so long, whose relentless hard work help us conduct this webinar properly. Many thanks, many thanks, all of you.
So with that, we can leave the meeting for the day. And thank you so much for being here, everyone.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Yeah. Right. Okay. Shobik, ask
Yes.
Suman to stop streaming now.
Huh.
Okay.
Good luck,
Suman,
everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabriela ma'am. Thank
Thank-
you, Anuradha ma'am. Thank you for your patience, for being there and going through all the technical glitches that happened. Thank you so much.
Suman off
Oh,
karo
thank
এটা।
you.
Suman